So when we are looking at in the GenAI models, like in a where we go with the GPT based, like in a generative pre-trained transformers. It's always, as I told you, like in a where you can give some sentence where then it will start generating the text for you as in a human like that, which you can see that either it is for the image or either it is for the video or anything. When you're working for the specific use case, we always have to remember what type of the model we need to choose. So choosing the right model is also will plays a critical role for you to execute your use cases. So you should be experiment with the multiple LLM models before you are deciding that like this is the model which we can go with that. So currently we are working with the Sonnet 4.5 and 4.5 Haiku. And earlier we have the Sonnet 3.7. So when I wanted to go for the higher end model, which model I need to be decided whether the Haiku 4.5 or Sonnet 4.5. So running the experiment with these two different models and evaluating with the LLM metrics like an exact match or Bailu or Rogue. So these are the raggers. So these are the various metrics which will be generally be utilized to see that the generated text or generated image how accurately which is matching with as for the user requested query. This is the similar what we are discussing like in text generation or image generation. If I going back with the business based the use cases. If you're working for as an a the marketing advisor where you can generate the content or for your products basically like in a like in what type of the marketing the strategy which you can apply for your product when you're launching for the next week or next 15 days, what type of the content you can prepare. So earlier where we have to depend into the content writer in terms of into write the content and where it will be published to the various social media engines like in a Facebook or like an Instagram or Twitter or with the various platform where you are going to promote your business. But now as you self if you're running for a startup industry where you can utilize this GPT tools and where you can develop your own self for designing the images for your content, the marketing product, or designing the content for yourself, like in a text information and everything which you can be able to do that. Along with that, where you can have a clear picture of R&D developmental activity as well. Like, and if you're working with the some of the companies like in a NVDA or like in any other companies like in where you can do with the whether the existing use cases which we can able to move out with the GenAI. So if you're turning towards to the GenAI, so what is the best approaches we have? So even you can able to identify various the developmental activity as well in terms of identifying and solving the issues, and then the healthcare as well, like in where you can analyze the medical images and where you can analyze the unstructured data to the structured data. For example, if the patient is suffering from the particular disease that we call as a event term, like in a of the patient is having the fever or like in a for some other kind of the issues which you can see the psychiatric and nervous system disorder. So what is the type of the drug which is came, what is the outcome of this particular the patient discharge summary. From the patient discharge summary where we are going to extract all this information, where you can see with the Haiku and the Sonnet models like and how it is performed. And all these are the kind of things which where I'm trying to showcase like in the different industries like in a so how this GenAI will be helping for them to making for helping them to understand the existing patterns and to providing the solution in terms of to identify this the GenAI. When we talking about the GenAI based application, as we know the web based like in a chat GPT, which is a very generation which you can call there are multiple the platforms you have where you can see some of the platforms which are open source, and some of the platforms are which are the the where you have to pay some prices for them, the tools which you are utilizing, like for example Midjourney. So Midjourney is a purely for where you wanted to generate the images like in a so with this platform will be helpful for to generating the images which you can see. So these are some of the tools which we have to be pay as a subscription. So then we need to use, and another tool which we can see the Microsoft Bing as well. So Microsoft, like we generally we have the UI model, which will help us you to get the information. This is open source only, and you will be having a Quinn as well. So this is also the best OpenAI models where you can utilize these services and you can able to get the solution within it, things. So like these are the models which you can try and explore so this is what once you start learning with the Gen AI, so where you can develop yourself as a custom chatbot system for your internal organization where you can develop your codes, or if someone wanted to have a query on the internal system, and they can go and get the response from the particular chatbot systems. So now the part as we are saying, look, we are generating the content, we are generating the image, we are generating the text and all together, but how will we when it is comes to the programmatically, what frameworks we supposed to use? So because we know that in machine learning we use the scikit-learn, so and deep learning where we go with the tensorflow or pytorch or the keras based frameworks. Now when it comes to the Gen AI, so we will go with the langchain as the more popular framework in terms of to developing, if you wanted to go with the open source like llamas, llama indexer which we have, but mostly we preferably go with the langchain as a framework, so which you can see. So with the langchain where you can import the LLMs either through the Azure, either through the OpenAI platform, either through the any other the third party plan where you can simply integrate and you can get the information as much as simple. But if you wanted to go with the specific Amazon based the cloud platform, so without the langchain you can go with the Boto 3 package and you can invoke the Bedrock as a services, which you can see that. So Amazon Bedrock is a platform which will contain where the Bedrock services, and similar like in Azure a platform also, like in where you can simply provide the API type as an Azure and you can connect to the GPT-4 or 4o GPT-5 models with the simple code with the Langchain framework. And if you wanted to go for open source, like in a few of the organization where they wanted to try with the open source, so you can get it from the Hugging Face or Mistral. So by using the transformers, like in a where you can develop your the use cases as well with the open source models. And other like Google AA platform and NVIDIA AA platform and Hugging Face where you can see that. So it's all very simple, like in a just 10 lines of code where you can going to utilize the Python programming language as a primary. So with the TensorFlow, with the LangChain as a framework, which you simply can implement with the 5 to 6 lines of code, and you can generate your text or you can generate the image based on the information which you want. As I mentioned, the key gen models here, where you can see GPT-4, 4o mini, GPT-5, and along with the where you can see the Cloud A and the Titan models, Llama. All these models are which is presented even for the Cloud Sonnet V1 and V2 Titan text Titan embeddings. So one interesting thing we have to focus here when choosing the model is token limit as well. So what is your input token limit? It is in a 128K token limit, or it's a 200K token limit, or it's in a and from the input side, and what is the output side as a token limit. So earlier GPT-4, GPT 3.5 where we see the 4096, then it is went up with the 8192 as a token limit now. So again some of the models now where it is supporting for the 32,000 as a output token limits as well. So this is something which we always have to find out, what is the max output token limit. So based on that where you have to organize your code. So for example, when you're working for for the larger PDF document which is contain 1,000 pages, for example, so you expect that in each page might won't have a information, but when you're looking for the 50 to page 100, you have most of relevant information as an output part. So now if you wanted to extract all those information which won't be possible for the existing because of the token limit which is having a 8192. So now how you are going to handle this issue? So this is where the large processing system, like a large token handling system, where you are going to do the sub chunk of the particular 50 to 100 pages into the multiple breaking into the smaller chunks, then you're going to process to the LLM, and that extracted information where you're going to combine with the multiple nested JSON, and you are going to receive the final as a response as in terms of the nested JSON format. So this is something which we have to the which we have to find out the solution based on the issues. So we have to see that the token limit is very very or the prerequisite, like in when you're trying to build the ra- any GenAI based use cases along with the LLM models. So another the important the functionality is the vector database. So why do we use the vector databases? So for example, just considering we itself, like in a now we are learning as in a the AI programming. Like in a programming as an machine learning, deep learning, and GenAI. When someone will come and when will ask you some questions about like in a so what framework you use for when you wanted to develop some image processing applications like in a so immediately, because you already have learned and you already have implemented various use cases in terms of the AI point of view. So then you start saying the response like, hey, we can go with the deep learning as a CNN, convolution neural network as an algorithm, and then this particular algorithms will be helpful for this particular the use case, right? So this is where because you have learned in the historically where you have the knowledge on the particular the topic, then you start giving you the relevant response to the user query. So if again the user asks, hey, what was the last sales of the HDFC? So they immediately, because you are not aware of that. So what you learned from the previous information, so like 4 years back or like somewhere where you have seen that the sales information of this is the stock price of this one. So then you are going to show you, but it is not the relevant answer, which is not an accurate answer. This is where the hallucinations, this is where the model, which is we user feel that the model is not performing as accurately. So how do we overcome this these type of this hallucination issues, or how do we give the relevant response to the user? So by creating the vector databases. So what vector databases do? So for any use case, so you are going to develop the knowledge base. So these knowledge base, which contains either the PDF documents or the Word document, either the images, any type of, it's a completely unstructured data. So where you're going to convert to the numerical values with the help of, as I mentioned, the open and coherent embeddings, which you can use, and you can develop the numerical values. And once you develop the numerical values, where you are going to store in the vector databases, like in traditional databases like in SQL or Oracle or MongoDB or NoSQL, PostgreSQL, how we use the traditional databases for storing the vectors as a numerical values. So we have to use a specific vector databases only. So these are the popular vector databases which will be utilized by the industries like in a Pinecone, Waveit, and Firesys, Milvos, Quadrant, and ChromaDB, PG Vector, and TypeSense. So Azure OpenSearch and Amazon OpenSearch. So these are the popular vector databases which will be utilized for you to store the knowledge bases information. So that's why whenever you wanted to develop any RAG based use case, first you have to decide what type of the vector database I need to use. So if I'm working for millions of data, so if I wanted to retrieve the data in a as soon as possible, like in a 1 or 2 seconds of the time. So what was the best vector databases which I can decide? Like going with the Pinecone is better, or going with the Quadrant is better, or Azure OpenSearch is better, where you have to decide your vector database and you have to implement accordingly the search mechanism to retrieve this information. Okay, so and along with what could be the parallel processing vector databases, we have the Pinecone is a parallel processing system where as soon as the query the user request, it will retrieve the relevant chunks to the user with the parallel the processing. So that's about the vector databases. Then we will talk more about in the upcoming track. As I mentioned in the GenAI, so the pure concepts of the GenAI is RAG. retrieval augmented generation. So what is the retrieval? Retrieval is something about the knowledge base. So that is the previous. So which we are going to read the data from the vector database. That's we call as a retrieval. Okay, the generator is nothing but the LLMs which we have seen in the Amazon Bedrock services like in a Cloud Sonnet 4.5, Haiku 4.5, or like in a general OpenAI platforms or the Sonnet like an Anthropic, the one which model we executed in the Visual Studio Code. So all these are the LLM models like large language models which we call as a generator. So when we combined the retrieval and the generator, we use the augmented as an approach in between, like in a combining together and making one final solution. So how will we develop this? So for example, if we consider for the chatbot system, so in chatbot system where user requesting the questions. So for the specific questions where we wanted to have a response for that. So as we have seen where it is a relevant. So when I'm looking for the some piece of the code which is relevant to my activity, but it is given some incorrect code, which is completely like in a which is irrelevant to us, right? So then I'll feel that like in a this particular the platform which is not working as expectedly, I can switch for some other platform. So now, how will you overcome these issues as a point of the business? Okay, this is where the knowledge base, as I mentioned in the vector database. So you are going to collect the data. So if the data source which is contains in the PDF, PPT, Confluence, or Jira, any type of general database, once you collect the data, then you are going to process those data with the if it is a readable document where you are going to use a PDF miner or PDF plumber or docling as a packages, and you will be extracting the information, and those information will be creating as a metadata. So I was working, hey, I want to have a sales for the particular geographical location for these 3 months of this particular product. So then this particular query will retrieve from the metadata from these tables, and it will give the results for the user as a summarization. So now once you've like, and if I go back to the PDF documents and everything, you read the documents and you process it and you create the chunks, and these chunks will be converted to the numerical values as a numbers with the help of embedding models. So once you convert it to the embedding, which will store into the vector database mentioned here, one of the vector databases will be stored here. Now the retriever, what it do, so it will retrieve the data from this vector database with the help of like in dense or sparse mechanism. So dense is nothing but it will go with the semantic similarity, like in a I'm looking for some specific food, so the food is okay. So when user says the food is okay and the food is better or food is good, so the good and better and okay is the three different but contextually those are positive, positive based the approach. So this is what the semantic similarity which will work. So when users provide the information, it will try to retrieve the similar type of the topic which is presented in the knowledge base by using the retrieval mechanism of dense approach, like in the semantic similarity using the inside the semantic similarity, you can go with the cosine similarity as an approach where it will try to fetch the relevant information. If not, there is another mechanism we call as a keyword search appearance, where I'm looking for okay means I need to find out okay as a specific word only. That's we call as a sparse based approach, dense and sparse. Either you go with the semantic similarity, meaning based on the meaning of the word which you have to retrieve, or you have to match the exact the word mapping. So that's where the keyword based we can say that. So either the two-way techniques which you can implement, we call as a hybrid technique also. Sometimes if you wanted to retrieve the best up of the embeddings, so you can go with the hybrid, and on top of you can apply the re-ranking. So so with this where you can develop your quality of the retrieving chunks, and once you generate the chunks, because these the chunks will be having a some 10 to 15 chunks, so consider 2 to 3 pages chunks. So as part of the use he required only just one or two lines of the sentence what the user is expects, right? If I sending the complete chunks or the complete 2 to 3 pages chunks, there is no there is no interest of the user to go through the each and every of the chunk or each and every page of the information, right? It should be summarized. So how will you are going to summarize? This is where the generator part will come. So in generator, where you are going to use the LLM models, so those LLM models will help us to summarize this context based on the user query. So for LLM as an input, where you are going to send the user query, then you are going to send the context from the knowledge base, and then finally you are going to get the final response, which you are going to develop in the RAG side. So any questions like